we explain to enterprises, everyone's fine. You did a good job, you did what you could, but if you're not doing automation, let alone not doing AI, you're at the traditional level. The first step up is to automate. No one's mentioned AI even, just automate, put
Mhm.
processes together. The next step up, advanced, says start using some intelligence. Start using things like AI, start using automated triggers, and start feeding that back into your processes.
That spark of innovation, it's just waiting for the perfect combination of tools and talent to bring it to life. Welcome to Pitch, Build, Scale. I'm your host, Chris Fanchi, a recovering startup founder, veteran SaaS marketer, turned dev tech enthusiast and growth specialist. Each episode, we connect with the builders, the visionaries, and the problem solvers who are redefining what's possible with today's technology and pioneering the websites, apps, and software products of tomorrow. These are the conversations that transform how we build, how we sell, and how we scale technology businesses in a world where the tech evolves by the minute. Ready to stay ahead of the curve? This is Pitch, Build, Scale. Hello and welcome to today's episode. We have a very exciting guest. For those of you just joining the podcast, we are Big North Marketing and specialize in helping dev shops and SaaS companies scale their revenue. So if you want to learn how to take your SaaS or dev business to the next level, make sure to stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, just drop us the word growth in the DMs. We're real excited for today's guest, Garret Grajek, CEO of YouAttest, a veteran in cybersecurity and identity governance with over 30 years in the field, 13 patents, and deep experience building enterprise-grade security solutions. Garret, welcome to the show.
Greetings, thanks to be on.
So I always like to start with kind of my guest's origin story. So starting from the beginning, what first pulled you into the world of cybersecurity?
Yeah, that was God, that's great, I don't get asked that, but it was really what it was is I was a programmer, and then I started I was up in Canada programming on a contract that finished. A friend of mine said, "Let's come down to Newport Beach, California, and I'm starting a company." I'm like, "Great, I'm there," right? And we learned Linux and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't necessarily a cybersecurity company. It did get me into programming Linux and understanding operating systems. And one of the things we had to do is obtain access to MRI machines. Okay. I won't go into details how we did that. Okay. It was because then I read some stuff that happened to MRI machines, but it really got me interested in the concept of security, locking things down and in importance of locking it down. Okay.
Hmm.
And then that company, not all startups make it, it didn't work. And I met someone at a party that there was a headhunter, which I didn't even know what that was. And they said, "Hey, we're looking for programmers who, can actually understand products and install them and all that." And the company turned out to be RSA. And
Hmm.
they made me an SE. And I was pretty much hooked from there because I think the SE position is a fantastic position to really understand our market, whatever the market is. And for me, it was the market of cybersecurity, what products are working, what people are asking for, and that wonderful intersect.
So how did your career progress from there? You're entering into a bigger corporation now. You're starting to get into real cybersecurity. How did that progress in the early days of cybersecurity?
Yeah, RSA, as everyone knows in the industry, is a wonderful company. They really were. They really did let you grow and all that. And I appreciate the culture and the people I met there. From there, what really looked like was taking off, and I was right about that, was web and web security and web functionality around security. And that's what the RSA didn't have that at the time. They were big into two-factor and real big in crypto, which was fantastic. But I got intrigued and then brought on to a company called Integrity, which you've got to be pretty much a wonk in the identity space to know, but they were big. They were the first single sign-on web company. And seems like, Garret, was there a day when people were doing the web and you had to log on to each one? Yes. Yes, there was. There really was. And then Integrity said, doesn't need to be. We can set up a centralized server, and we can have it that if you log on to one website, you can get single sign-in to all the others. And it was great. It was needed, and they did do a beautiful intersection of functionality and security, because I was implementing a really, really, I don't know, there's no reason to name them, but a really large stock trading company, and they were being hacked. And the CTO, when I was installing the integrity, showed me the sites and the ransomware letters and all that. And what we did with integrity is not only provide a single sign-on, but a stronger encryption of the session tickets. And so it was a really good company to understand the intersection of providing functionality and then providing stronger security through functionality.
Interesting. So, jumping ahead to today, what problem did you see that led you to founding YouAttest?
Yeah, and I should have mentioned that the RSA plus an integrity background as an SE, a sales engineer, led me to create a company called SecureAuth, where I put two-factor and single sign-in together in a single product, and that was a great run, and they had a good time, and they're still out there. So all the best to SecureAuth. But today, what I did is, after running SecureAuth, I did a bunch of AI over at a company called Silence. But then the teammates that I was working with at SecureAuth, many of them went over to the leading non-Microsoft SSO company of today, which is Okta. And they said, Garrett, Okta is great. It's got two-factor, it's got single sign-on, but there's this whole piece that really hasn't been explored by a rapid company, a company that wants to deploy its solution fast. And that's the concept of identity governance, the concept that not just granting the rights, but attesting to who has rights and documenting that attestation process. And that's what many of my Cs over at SecureAuth went over to Okta and told me that was a gap. And so I looked into it and said, yeah, voila, let me jump into that space and let me build it.
Did you always want to be an entrepreneur to run your own business, or is that something that you just came upon an idea and decided, why not do it myself?
There's much more to ladder. Much more to ladder. I mean, I know there's these guys that sit there and said, I need to run this, I need to, whatever. And it's like, that really wasn't me. It was more, I have an idea, and then someone would say, okay, I can get that funded, or you should run with that. And I was like, okay, that's the way I would do it. I really, I mean, I've done it both ways. I've said I have an idea, and the wonderful people at Silence then said, "Great, we'll hire you, and we'll build a team around you." It was a great experience. So I have to admit, to me, the idea comes first, and then the mechanism to market is, I'm just okay. What's available?
So whether that's within a company that exists or starting something yourself, it's
Yes,
whatever makes
yes.
the most sense.
I enjoy the process either way, and it really is. It's just different, and there's different advantages of both ways. The a well-funded company, you have a great, advantage of being well-funded. And then, the private yourself, you have a much, obviously, assertion of control and influence of direction.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So for the non-technical people in the audience, can you break down what UAttest is doing, what pain point it's solving in today's market?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Let's start with what really matters in 2025. What really matters in 2025 is data. Okay. The rest of us, the devices, the apps, the network, yeah, it's important, but what really matters is the data. Okay. And when people see regulations or lawsuits and all that, no one gets sued over hacking an app. No one gets sued for hacking a device. No one gets sued for hacking a web server. You get sued because they use that hack to obtain access to data.
Mhm.
Data which is classified legally, not in all of our computer stuff, but no, legally classified as sensitive. And those fall into primarily three categories, which is PHI, healthcare data, personal healthcare information, PII for financial personal identifiable information, and CUI, which is defense, called controlled unclassified information. Let me
Mm.
just generically call it sensitive data. That's what it is. So enterprises, everything from government enterprises to public enterprises, have sensitive data. There's regulations around them. Part of the regulation says succinctly that the access to that data, primarily through applications, but the access to the data must be attested to. You must have a document that says, I reviewed who had access to that data. These are the people, and we certify that this is the case. Now, that's a process. That's literally a process that says, usually people are spending spreadsheets around and work tickets, and it's a mess. So I came up with a better way to do that, to go into what I know well, the identity management solutions, the Okta, the Azure IDs, the Pink, the Jump Clouds, using those tools to do an attestation of rights and privileges for all resources in the enterprise, and do it in a way, which is a challenge, that can be deployed rapidly. I can get this product up and running in a day anywhere.
Mm.
Now, alternate ways to do this can take literally months of time. So that's how my brain is wired. I can do this faster.
So, what kind of companies do you typically work with? Are they all enterprise level or are some of them smaller?
And some of them are smaller. I usually work with entities that have user entities ranging from 100 to 10,000. So the smaller ones are obviously usually private health companies or even some schools that need to or remember, in today's world, 100 users is not doesn't mean to be have 100 employees. That could be. I think these guys probably have maybe the ones I'm thinking of right now, maybe 20, 25 employees, but they have contractors and they have associates and they have partners and they all have identities. They have access to sensitive data, right? And then
Mm.
now what's really relevant is, many of my clients have 20, 30% of the accounts we're reviewing are NHIs, non-human identities. Okay. And
Mm.
those have to be checked for what they have access to. So what the common factor is the enterprises, be them public or private, are controlling sensitive data. And then the sweet spot of this product that I built is around 500 to 2,500 users.
Okay. Are there particular industries that you find yourself working with more than others?
Straight out in this order: healthcare, finance, insurance. You know, and they have a lot of sensitive data, and they have very relevant, very quantifiable to everyone in the organization guidances and compliance measures that they have to meet. So, I mean, I'm not selling them the need of YouAttest, educating them, saying you have a process for attesting to this access. I think we have a better process. Let me show you it.
Okay. So those NHIs, are you finding a lot of companies that are starting to move into the AI agent space, utilizing non-human identities, non-human agents
Yeah,
to access data?
the NHIs don't necessarily mean AI. You got just system accounts that have, which are, I'm a certified ethical hacker, so studied into it. Those are great accounts for hackers. I mean, that basically, it says it's doing this operation, etc. That was the whole SolarWinds attack, right? Because you basically saying I have these entities that have the rights to access these resources. Okay, if those get manipulated and and the privilege gets out to non-trusted where they're actors, we're in a lot of trouble. So I think what you've done with the question is a good way. NHIs, they're dangerous today. They're gonna get a lot more dangerous, and that doesn't danger doesn't mean oh, we got to cut them off. No, we got to be aware of them. We got to quantify it as a risk. We got to be regularly reviewing these, and we got to put the controls around them to help us manage them, because it's way too late. NHIs, the non-AA ones are doing great work. They're helping keeping our products up to date. They're, pushing out data. They're helping the whole systems work. And the AI ones will make it more efficient. So I'm very pro AI. I'm very pro, automation. Automation is key. My product is automation.
Do you see this AI agent change coming as an opportunity for your business? And are you guys having to
I
build new
even took
solutions?
I even took the concept of AI, which is basically have the data feed the logic, as opposed to logic feeding the data, and built an identity trust score where basically it takes the data in from the privileges and then gives a trust score for each user. So I see AI being nothing but helpful. Now, what's holding us back, and I won't say what's holding us back is humans. Humans aren't holding us back. What's holding us back is the systems will we built aren't all ready to take advantage of AI and identity trust scores and other types of AI. So basically, that's where concepts to help us sell and understand, like zero trust, come in where we explain to enterprises everyone's fine, you did a good job, you did what you could, but you're really, if you're not doing automation, let alone not doing AI, you're at the traditional level. The first step up is to automate. No one's mentioned AI even, just automate, put
Mhm.
processes together. The next step up, advanced, says start using some intelligence. Start using things like AI, start using automated triggers, and start feeding that back into your processes. So that's the advance. The optimal state of zero trust, and I'm going through the CISA cybersecurity maturity model, and it's defined, and it's great, and it helps people explain. The optimal state is where I have a score, YouAttest, right? And you can go in it, you can look at it, you can look at what I scored a user. That score is imbibed and utilized by other enforcement points. Like saying, hey, you're trying to take 2 terabytes of data today out of here, and your identity trust score is 5. Maybe that user's been hacked, right? That's where we need to go. So it's not, I don't see AI as the problem. I don't see AI as all. AI is a solution, but the answer to how to use AI really isn't an AI question. It's an integration and interoperability question of how we not only it's pretty damn easy with AI with all these tools to create things like scores, to create things. What's more difficult is consuming that score in not only an intelligent way, but a rational, dynamic, and rapid way so that information can be enforced.
Is your solution utilizing AI right now?
Yeah. Yeah. I use, I mean, we did like 3.8 million of these assessments. So we have tons of data, and we're able to feed models and build a model around what would be a trusted user and what would be a suspicious user. So that's an identity trust score that we built. And then what we did is there's a concept, but basically, saying, hey, human in the loop. It's, I think the acronym, if you look it up, is HTL, um, or HITL, but I think it's HTL, is human in the loop. What it means is a lot of our AI models are great and all that. They're not really absorbing the information and the wonderful information the human can provide. And what we did with our AI is incorporate the concept human in the loop. And then we said, when's the last time a human has reviewed this user? And that's not in any other model in the world. Because, can models be, thrown off? Yeah, all the time and intentionally. It's
Mhm.
called poisoning. Look up data poisoning. That's how you take an AI model and you make it do something that the originators don't want, but you as the hacker want it to do. So what HTL they say does, and I agree, is it keeps them sane, keeps them with guardrails, et cetera. And that's what we did. We said, this is a product. The UAttest product is a product that does these user access reviews who says, and someone hits a button and attests it. That should be a factor in how much this user is actually trusted. Actually, the age of that, right? If no one's reviewed this user for 2 years, I think it should be suspicious.
Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Are you seeing enterprise users in any of the companies that you're working with that are choosing to embrace some AI tools in their systems? Are they considering the identity governance side of things? Are they considering the cybersecurity side of things before they jump in?
I'm seeing right now is, I wouldn't say a hesitation for AI, but okay, if it makes sense to my processes and if it adds, value immediately to my processes, they're interested, right? I do not, maybe people in a different world, but I do not see in the governance space, especially the governance space, which tends to move even slower than in the security space, any great, well, I need, the machine that goes bing. That's just doesn't happen in governance. But when I show, hey, I can give you a trust score and I can help you with this, that makes sense. So I think, yes, there is a movement. It is a rational understanding movement. There's also, for better or for worse, a lot of FUD that's been put out there around how do we govern AI itself. And don't mm, I don't think all of the discussions around that are legitimate or even helpful. I think some of them are really self-serving, right? I mean, the practices of AI is should be, hey, and this isn't me. And look up the NIST AI RMF or ISO 42001. It basically says, you know, it is a product. It can be controlled, watch who you had access, where did you get your data from, who had managed the data, who had access to the data, who had access to the algorithms, right? And who had access to the implementation and the integration of the algorithm into the application. These are all just standard principles, least privileged stuff that we're helping our customers today. So what I'm saying is AI is great. I think the output of it is fantastic and will help us in our systems. Enterprises should embrace it where it gives them better results. And it can the governance of it is real. I want to say a shrink wrap, but the tools are there. The things like YouAttest, if I'm helping you understand your privileges around access to Salesforce, the same tool, UATest, can be used to understand who had access to the data and the algorithms and implementation, and that should be documented for your AI models.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, as a company, where are you guys heading over the next, say, 12 to 18 months? What are your plans as you're developing products and
I said
marketing?
the technology is built, is running. I'm doing big customers on it and large volumes. Now it's how do I scale? And there's something happened a lot since COVID. And I believe what happened since COVID with budgets and change and whatever is the managed service providers. Basically, the concept that, hey, maybe it's gotten too complicated for me. Maybe my organization is just overwhelmed, not only in running it, but governing it. And let's have some professional who has professionals design it. So what we did with UATest is turn it into a product that an MSP can run, or we became also, and it's actually we became a service ourselves that an MSP consultant service can simply just contract us and we will do the user access reviews. So I see, of course, there's always incremental technology changes, but I think there's a much bigger change going on the business side of all this, that the enterprises will start using, well, they're not start, will continue and the advancement and the adoption of using things like managed service providers is growing, and we're on that bandwagon, and we built the product to be conducive to the MSPs.
Do you think there's a desire by enterprises to become a little bit leaner and a willingness because of products like yours and other security tools, a willingness to engage with outside vendors on certain things more so than in the past?
Or we're capitalism. Capitalism wants efficiencies. And that and you know, and another thing I learned about the certificate survey, it's all about metrics. And if we can show that we can, handle, more business with less people and less overhead and whatever, then the answer is going to be yes. The answer, looks good on a spreadsheet, and the the trend will continue.
You finding then that you think that there's more potential in those partnerships with MSPs than
Oh, yeah.
trying to go directly into the
Yeah.
enterprises?
I see it. I think, and it's not just me, because if when I talk to the large resellers, they they're very, very interested. They see the trend. I got one that says they will not take on products, and they're big. I don't no need to mention it here. They're big. They will not take on products in their incubation team, because that's the ones that they want to grow with, if it doesn't have a service component for them. So, I mean, that's not them thinking, or, talking over a beer or coffee. No, that's them saying, putting a policy down saying, we are going to be, we're the world's largest resellers. We're going to be a service oriented reseller. So that's the way I'm sure they got their MBAs and all that. They got the numbers. They looked at the things and said, this is where the market's going. This is where we have to be, not only next year, 2026, but 2035. That's where they have to be. They have to be comfortable in doing services. And that's where UAttest is aligned right, because it's aligned right. Not only technically it works, it does these user access, user centers, it's aligned for the service community to use, not on one, but on hundreds, if not thousands of accounts.
Hmm. So how is that informing your go-to-market motions, your sales and marketing approaches?
I'm hiring more and doing more marketing on the MSP consultant side. That's the community. That's the community I not only need to win now, but have to win over in the next year.
And how are you getting in front of those
When
companies?
I heard a guy out of Accenture looking at another gentleman that's in that space, I'm always doing reach outs on LinkedIn and on emails and calls, and we're going to be doing more shows around where the MSPs are going.
Like in-person trade shows,
Oh,
those
yeah,
kinds of shows?
yeah, yeah. I want to be where they are, especially around verticalization, because there's a whole discussion in that space that the MSPs, to add maximum value, not saying they don't add value just by knowing, but maximizing their value when they become an expert in a vertical. You know, we are the, and this is where this one guy talks about, says, Garrett, I don't even mean just healthcare. He says, I want to see them say, we are the specialist in heart surgeons. So we know the software, we know the regulations, we know the processes and procedures that they need that heart surgeons need to do. And I think, not only I think that's the way the market's going, I think that adds a lot of value, because you become, when you take in your motorcycle or car, you like to take to a dealer that knows Hondas, or knows whatever.
Yeah. It's interesting. In my interviews and previous episodes, I've talked to a lot of software development teams and SaaS products, and I'm seeing that all across the tech space is verticalization or
Yeah.
becoming hyper specialized. And I think you're right. It's very much because you have that level of knowledge that you can bring outside of just building the product or building the software, but also domain knowledge and regulatory knowledge, which is obviously an increasing challenge. But in addition to that, you've got the efficiencies of AI tools and things that make it much more possible to build hyper specialized software
Oh, I like
and
that, Chris.
get
Yeah,
it into
that's a good
organizations.
point. It really is, because not only is the market say it, we have the abilities to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't just have to build for the general public and hope you can tag on a few pieces here and there to make it fit an industry. You can now really build for a specific industry.
Your audience out there can right now, because we've put so many documents out there, can look up things like, and then I had one of my marketing people write a bunch of letters to the audience this way. It says, for healthcare, why is UAttest relevant? And it'll spell out. For manufacturing, why is UAttest relevant? For finance, why is it would spell out the regulations, the processes, and the procedures that each of those industries are faced with, and why a UAttest product and service is relevant.
Yeah, and it used to be a company, it would take months or at least weeks of research to be able to put something like that together. Now you
Right.
can spin it up in an afternoon,
Yes.
a lot of
Yep.
ways. Yeah. No, it's very interesting. Hypothetically, let's say you had a magic wand and could fix or change one thing in your business that would get you to the ultimate future goal that you want to reach. What would that one thing be?
I would say, because that's what I'm spending my daylight hours is convincing and implementing this solution in the hands of the enterprises, both MSCs and consultant partners who are doing this functionality either manually or with a myriad of multiple methods. And that's what I'm seeing. So what I'm doing is saying, hey, we can consolidate your practices and we can give you one product so you can do user access reviews on all your clients. That's what I spend my daytime hours on.
That's great. One last thing, I'll let you out of here on this. What advice would you give to younger founders of companies like yours who are just trying to get their first few clients, just trying to get started?
Stay social. And we all think that, okay, great, I did a LinkedIn post. Yeah, but also make sure you're in the community. And there's so many, like in a security world, there's great ISSA shows, there's great ISC squared shows, there's the CSA, there's all these meetups and all this. Keep going out there. Not each one has value, but collectively getting out there, learning to talk, doing the FTF, face to face stuff. It's easy, especially in the grind of trying to make things work, of working the hours. It's really easy not to, because you don't want to commute, you don't want to do it. So that would be my 2 cents.
That's interesting. There does seem to be this shift because of AI, and so much of what we see on social media is AI generated. Is that increasing shift to the relationship building side of things and actually having that personal connection when it comes to sales and marketing and growing your business.
Yeah, yeah, I really just that's funny you say that, Chris, because I read that today too. Someone said that he because of AI, and I didn't correlate the two. I just know my own life from you just trying to build something and working with schedules around hours, and I'll take a call from London, work, Chicago, and then I got to work with my team over in Asia. So it's very easy to be at my desk. Just stay at the
Yeah.
desk,
Yeah.
And I would say, and I would personally experience, no, you got to force yourself. That's why meetups are good. You schedule that 2 weeks out and you just schedule around it.
That's great advice for everybody. Thank you. Garret, this was great. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate your insights. Love hearing about your story and your company. Can you tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, we're YouAttest. That's the word youattest.com. And just go on us and talk to us or hit me up on LinkedIn, talking all day, even when I'm driving to one of these events. Garret Grajek, there's only one of them. I used to make fun of my name, and then about 25 years ago when the internet took off, someone said, nah, it's a great name. There's only one of them.
Yeah, uniqueness is currency, I suppose.
Right. That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. There you go. Right. So there you go. That was fun.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for listening. Please be sure to subscribe, leave us a review. And as always, keep pitching, keep building, and keep scaling. Thanks for listening to this episode of Pitch, Build, Scale. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast provider so you never miss an episode, and we'll see you next time.